And then there were 4. Denver, Los Angeles, Boston, and Miami. The NBA Conference Finals goes underway tonight, and we're here to break it all down and give our predictions. But before we do that, we have some news to cover first, including Ja's likely suspension on his second offense, the yearly 76ers shortcomings, and the sun has finally exploded over there in Phoenix. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you doing? How you feeling on this Tuesday morning?
I'm feeling great. You know, a lot of news to get into, and I'm ready to dive into it.
This is your early reminder that if you do enjoy what you're seeing or hearing, go ahead and support us down below. We have our socials on the screen, and we've been dropping exclusive content there daily, or at least weekly, right? So go ahead and support us, as in the last, week? We've gained like 80 subscribers. So you guys are amazing. We can't thank you enough, and help us get to 200. We're 8 away. You guys could be the guy. We can't do it without you, basically. But without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast. I'm Owen. Let's get into some news. Again, we're going to talk about Ja Morant. Is it still a parade in his city? We're going to have to find out. But this is his second offense, as he was shown flashing a gun on Instagram Live. He's currently suspended from the team. As I mentioned, it's his second offense, as the first one was seen as a light punishment by many, as he only was suspended about 8 games or so. But per Woj, Morant is facing a very real possibility of a lengthy suspension to start the 23-24 season, maybe half the year. Just quick thoughts on it. I mean, it's when you have $200 million sitting on the table, why do you do this, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, I don't think that many people believed Ja when he said that he was going to try and go out there and prove that he's not that type of person. That, you know, he's been on occasion. This isn't like the first or second just offense of, you know, something he's done alone. This is like 5 or 6. He's had those incidences over just pretty much the last calendar year. And, you know, obviously, like you said, people thought that the last suspension was light because the team suspended him for like 6 games. Adam Silver, you know, only put on 2 more games after that. And he was like, oh, well, he went to rehab and he claims to be a better person. So we're only going to give him, you know, a 2-game suspension after the 6 he served before. And, you know, we know he didn't play for like a week after that, just building up his conditioning level. But, you know, I think that some of the blame, or 99% of the blame, falls on Ja Morant. Obviously, you know, there can't be a chaperone with him at all times of the day. There can't be somebody from Memphis with him all times of the day saying, hey, Ja, don't do this, don't do that. But then you got to go back to the league, too, because the league had a chance to kind of change this behavior by giving him a lengthy suspension. But because the league or Adam Silver wants to be more of a people's commissioner than a, you know, David Stern. Yeah. So, you know, he gave him 8 games, and this is what you get. You get your, you know, somebody who's the face of the league doing this. Now you're going to be forced to suspend him at least till, you know, probably like All-Star break, if that's the type of length that they're talking about. Yeah,
I mean, Adam Silver, like you mentioned, I mean, he's the commissioner of player empowerment. That's been the whole thing since he took over for David Stern.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for one of the young faces in the league that a lot of young kids look up to have another gun offense like this, it's doing nothing good for the younger audience of the NBA. If anything, it's going to take viewership away from the NBA. But Ja Morant, I mean, why? You know, it's not like he had to grow up in this lifestyle. It's not like he has to portray this lifestyle. We've talked about it a lot here on the podcast, but Ja Morant, I mean, just play basketball. and another thing that frustrated me was the friend. I mean, why even, you know, I get maybe, you know, hey, I'm friends with Ja Morant, but it's like he had to record it knowing there was a gun in the car to look who I'm with. You know, validate me. I'm with Ja Morant. That doesn't excuse Ja Morant holding a gun up.
Right, yeah.
But it's the friend. It's partially, this is on the friend too for putting him in that situation.
Yeah, I will say though, I saw a lot of people saying, yeah, the friend obviously put him in that situation, which he did. He started recording. But the friend is also the one who, as soon as that gun went up on camera, he yanked it away and put it back on himself. So, you know, I'm sure, you know, in his mind, he's like, oh, you know, yeah, I'm showing off that I'm friends with Ja Morant. No way he's about to start, you know, get this gun and start waving it in the air,
right?
Which is crazy. But, you know, it's just a bad look all around. Like you said, the image that Ja's portraying to the fans, the league, you know, it's just a bad, you know, a bad image. And, you know, yeah, I feel bad for the Memphis organization. They have to keep going through this. And like I said, it's not even just the gun charges. It was the assault charges that he's had on many different occasions with
the laser.
Know, exactly, the laser pointing. It's like, you know,
it's childish.
Exactly, and you know, and quite honestly, I don't know how he still has like his partnership with Nike, with all of these other big brands that he has, even after all of these. But, sometimes another person does one thing wrong and they're out of everything. So
Kyrie Irving, all he did was share a movie to a religious movie from Amazon, and Nike completely cut him off. Yeah. Everything. John Morant over here flashing guns and promoting this lifestyle, and he's still somehow part of Powerade, Nike,
exactly.
And all those brands there. I guess just very quickly, I've seen this rumor floating around, this question from that draft class, the 2019 class, I believe, where you had Zion, Ja, R.J. Barrett, Darius Garland. With Zion's health problems and John Morant's stupidity, who do you think is the best pick? Do you still think it's John Morant in that class? I mean, I think right now it's hard to believe he's not the best player in the class, but who do you think was the best pick?
The best pick? Honestly, the best pick is probably, it'd probably have to be Darius Garland.
Yeah, Darius Garland. I mean, he went fifth to us.
Exactly. I think, obviously Darius Garland has his struggles, but there's never been a question of his character. He's always doing community work. He keeps a low profile when he's not playing. Like I said, he's good for the community. I mean, even R.J. Barrett struggles on the court sometimes for long stretches, but even he playing in New York, he hasn't, done anything that's
detrimental to the team. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Changed his image around the league. Even Zion doesn't play, obviously, so he's not the best pick, but he does. Like, the thing about Ja that makes it so bad, it's things that Ja can control.
Yes,
Zion can't necessarily control his injuries, to an extent. Obviously, we know he can, fluctuate his weight a little bit, but Zion can't really control his injuries. Ja can control what he does on and off the court. How he interacts with people, how he engages with fans, and he just chooses to do that. And another thing that I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
No.
Another thing that I see a lot is, he's just a young man. He's just learning. My thing is, you can't say that about somebody who's 23, 24. 23, 24, and you're an adult. You make your own decisions. You shouldn't need somebody to walk you through, hold your hand through life until you're 40. And, I don't get that. When you go to the NBA, you're basically expected to act as an adult. You sometimes people do make mistakes and you get one or two of those, but when it's the same thing or same area of, mistakes, then that becomes a you problem. So
yeah, I don't care what lifestyle I have. If you put $200 million in front of my face, I'm willing to do pretty much anything to get that money. That's generational money there for John Morant. But moving over here, the NBA Draft Lottery goes underway tonight at 8 o'clock, a.k.a. the Victor Wembanyama Draft Lottery goes underway tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. The Pistons, Magic, and the Rockets have the highest chance at the number one pick. The Spurs and the Hornets are right outside. This is, we've seen with the new lottery system, we've seen some teams jump up. I mean, the first year they did it, the Pelicans had the 9th projected pick. They jumped all the way to 1, and they have Zion now, which they were able to basically replace AD from day one, in a sense, right? But Victor Wembanyama, I mean, which team out of those 5, I guess, do you want to see him go to the most? I would say probably the Magic, in my opinion, with Paolo Banchero, with Franz Wagner. You add, Victor Wembanyama to a team that already has like a Bowl too, that team's going to be must-watch TV.
Yeah, I'd say definitely like the Magic or the Hornets are probably my top two. LaMelo, he was, the youngest All-Star in NBA history, right? Or was one of the youngest. We know what he can do when he gets on the court, and the Magic have a lot of good pieces around them. I think they were one of the best teams, I think, post All-Star break. If I'm not mistaken, they were one of the better teams post All-Star break. They just played so bad beforehand that it didn't make a difference. But I'd rather see him go to one of those two teams. I wouldn't even be mad at the Pistons. They have Cade, Jaden Ivey. They have a solid team.
The Rockets have Ime Udoka now.
I don't want him to play with Jalen Green.
I was just thinking maybe give him I guess not experienced coach, but a coach that has been to the highest level, which is the NBA Finals. Maybe surround him with a defensive coach.
Yeah, and I guess if the rumors are true and that the Rockets are, James Harden and the Rockets are interested in a reunion, then Wemby to the Rockets, it honestly wouldn't be that bad.
I don't know if I like that though.
I only say it because you have an experienced playmaker. controlling the Rock. I wouldn't necessarily like him going to the Rockets if James Harden didn't go, just because we know that Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., or more so Jalen Green, isn't a playmaker. Kevin Porter Jr. is a shoot-first guard. And without any other vets around, to kind of share the ball distribution, they probably need to go after like a Tyus Jones for a younger team just to get everybody involved. That'll help. But because they don't have a veteran guard, I just don't want to see him, waste a few years off of his career because he doesn't have the proper team around him. And when you draft somebody like Wembanyama, you're pretty much saying, hey, we're going to draft you and then we're going to build the team around you.
Right.
No,
absolutely. Like I said, the draft lottery goes underway tonight. Just like we did with the NFL draft, we're going to have some NBA mock drafts here on the channel. Probably 2 or 3. We'll have to see how that goes. But most likely just the lottery here for the NBA is players come from everywhere right here in for prospects. But moving over to brotherly disappointment, the city of brotherly failure, whatever you want to say. But the 76ers, they lost Game 7 as Joel Embiid was like 4 of 16. Joel Embiid and James Harden, they combined for like 9 of the 12 turnovers in that game. But from 2018 to 2023, this is really the prime years of the process, is a way to put it. This team has 5 second-round exits, 1 first-round exit. They've been through now the Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, and likely the James Harden era. Doc Rivers as a coach, I mean, he might be gone. And not to mention he's had a terrible history in the playoffs. As just some stats here, he's lost an NBA record 32 closeout games, 7 series when leading 3-2, 10 Game 7s, 5 consecutively, and 12 series when leading at any point, right, in his decorated coaching career. But throughout this entire process, there's always been a scapegoat, whether if it was, Jimmy left, or, hey, it was Ben Simmons refusing to shoot, or now it's probably going to be James Harden and Doc Rivers. To me, there's no longer a scapegoat. All this blame goes on Joel Embiid. You can't come to the podium after the game and say, we can't do it alone. When you shoot 4 of 16 from the field in a Game 7, while the counterpart, Jason Tatum, is putting up 51 points, most points in a Game 7 ever.
Yeah.
There is no longer a scapegoat. My question is, does he get another pass? I don't believe so. Joel Embiid, to me, is at full blame here for the 76ers exit.
Yeah, I don't give him another pass. You somehow got 2 40-point games out of James Harden in the playoffs, which hasn't been done since 2015, I believe. And you still squandered that. You had a closeout game at home in Philadelphia. You couldn't get it done there because you let Jason Tatum score 16 points in the fourth quarter, while as a team you scored 13. And then you go to Boston, and it was like you lost before you even got on the court. The Celtics came out with a lot of energy, a lot more energy, and Joel Embiid was just walking and jogging up and down the court. He had a couple of blocks here and there when the defense was set, but for the most part, it was like it didn't look like the MVP Joel Embiid from the regular season.
Right.
He's always hurt during the playoffs, so you can't use that as an excuse anymore. Because at what point are you going to put the excuses aside and say, hey, it was on me? He doesn't take up for that. He says, oh, we can't do it by ourselves. You get 11 points out of PJ Tucker, who is known for running around conditioning.
And that's like most of it was in the first quarter.
Exactly. Tyrese Maxey hit a few. Was playmaking and hitting a few corner threes. You get production from everybody, from most people except your 2 stars. And then it's almost like they don't even care after the game. Joel Embiid, he's joking around at the press conference, quoting Giannis, saying, "Oh, well, someone said it's not failure, it's just step to success," and he's laughing while doing it. It's like Joel Embiid worked so hard to get that MVP. It's like he doesn't really care about anything else.
I think that was his finals.
Exactly. Yeah, I think he got his MVP, and he said, "Okay, I may not win a championship in my career, but I got an MVP, so I'm happy now." I'm not the biggest Doc Rivers fan, but I don't know if I can blame him for his team going out there and playing, or for his 2 stars going out there and playing like that. I don't know about you, but all season I hadn't heard anything about James Harden and Doc Rivers not getting along, and then after the game it becomes a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your 2 stars seemed unmotivated from the start, and it was at that point in time, it's like Doc Rivers is probably sitting back like there's not much I can do now. I was watching the game. I'm like, Doc, why don't you call a timeout before, like the 24-3 run? And he's probably thinking, well, there's no point. My 2 stars are jogging up and down the court. They're not interested in the game.
Right.
And Jason Tatum is, making every shot he looks at. So we're just going to accept our fate. And he probably wants to get out of there as well.
Yeah, it's frustrating watching this team because James Harden in that game 1 and in that game 4 or 5 when he had the 40-point games, surprisingly enough, he wasn't a ball stopper. James Harden was in the flow of the offense, just getting his points and getting his, in producing at the high level that we know James Harden can do. But man, for the rest of the games, he was just, especially in Game 7, he was just a ball stopper. Tyrese Maxey or Tobias, if they're coming off, different actions and it looks like they have an open look, James Harden is, I'm going to hold the ball for a couple more seconds, then we're going to initiate something. When sometimes you have to take what the defense gives you. You can't just go out there and be that great every single play and make those step back shots or just get a shot off in the last 5 seconds of a shot clock. You have to give what the defense takes, and James Harden he's more of a ball stopper, I think, than ever. And that might sound crazy, especially in that Houston system, but it's frustrating watching James Harden. It's frustrating watching Joel Embiid laugh about it, in the post-game presser. And, I mean, like I cut you off there, I think Joel Embiid's finals was to just get the MVP.
Yeah.
And I think now he was just content, and this team was kind of like, we're content with where we've gotten to this point, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I think, like you mentioned with Doc Rivers, there's only so much you can do as a coach. I know he gets a lot of heat for his previous coaching experiences, but he's also had a lot of star injuries with Chris Paul and those teams, or whether if it was Blake Griffin or the aging Celtics teams there in Boston. But Doc Rivers, I mean, there's only so much you can do when you have the MVP on your team and he plays like a role player.
Yeah, and I mean, if you ever listen to Doc Rivers before or after the games, after series and everything like that, when he knows, or sometimes when he knows he's about to get fired, he sounds very knowledgeable about like what went wrong, like what.
Right.
And I sometimes I feel bad for him because, like you said, he gets a lot of the heat that's not necessarily his fault. He's always like, well, some of those leads, I was the 8th seed Orlando Magic. Okay, I'll give him that when he was coaching T-Mac, and it just because it goes into stats, it makes it look worse. But I mean, Doc Rivers always has a job, and it's not because that he's just, it's you can't say that somebody keeps getting a job and they're not good at their job. Obviously, he knows what they're doing, and obviously, he's given Philly the best chance to move forward since he's been there. But then, like you say, James Harden and Joel Embiid coming to the postseason uninterested, just like last year, and it's like, it's like
they don't want the ring bad enough. At least that's what it looks like.
They don't.
But moving over to the sun has finally exploded. No pun intended there, but just a little timeline, little background here before we get into it. But again, this Suns team was in the finals 2 years ago, and now there's tons to answer with this Phoenix Suns team. I believe after the bubble, they traded for Chris Paul, and they made it to the finals. The following year, they lost in 6 to the Milwaukee Bucks. As we know, Giannis had a historic finals performance there, especially in Game 6. But they after the 2021 season, right? They come into 2022. They have the number one offense and defense last year. They were a 60-plus win team. They made it to the second round until they were single-handedly bounced by one Luka Doncic, and it's good to note Jalen Brunson there. But then DeAndre Ayton, he had enough. He's been a big crybaby in Phoenix. He decided that he wants to leave. He signed a deal with the Indiana Pacers, but since he was restricted, the Suns matched his deal, hopefully trying to rekindle that relationship there. Then, trade deadline comes, they trade Mikal Bridges and 82 first-round picks for Kevin Durant. Rightfully so, was a good move. They beat an injured Clippers team here in the first round, and then they lose to a complete, really good team here in the Denver Nuggets in the second round. Chris Paul's aging, missed most of the Denver series. DeAndre Ayton is a crybaby, like I mentioned, and he clearly wants out. They're looking to move both of them this offseason. They fired Monty Williams, which was a very surprising move. Cavs. If you're listening, I don't care if JB has the potential to go 82-0. Monty Williams is the better option.
Yeah.
JB could take a back seat. But back on track here. So Chris Paul's aging. He's getting older. Bunch of injury concerns. DeAndre Ayton, he wants out. They traded all of their depth for Kevin Durant. And if they're going to move guys like DeAndre Ayton or guys like Chris Paul, who's someone you would like them to go after? Because now you have Chris Paul, or not in this scenario, you would have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It's not hard to build around those guys, but what's a name that you would like to see if they move DeAndre Ayton or Chris Paul?
So Chris Paul, the person I would trade Chris Paul for, or I try to get by trading Chris Paul, is Fred VanVleet. The Raptors have been pretty open that they're pretty expressive that they want to try and move off of Fred if it makes sense. And I think the Raptors are at a point, they fired Nick Nurse. I think the Raptors are at a point where they're probably going to look to go a different direction. Maybe it's a full rebuild. Maybe it's just getting some of the guys from that championship team out of there, bringing in some youth. Pascal's not that old, but Fred, he's kind of dipped every season since his All-Star season, it feels like. So I think you try and get like a player like Fred VanVleet, big contract, but he's younger. Fred VanVleet struggles in Toronto may not be the same struggles he'll have in Phoenix. He takes a lot of shots in Toronto because he is that 1 or 2 option because he has to. When he comes to when he comes to Phoenix, he can play make. He can get better looks. He can do what he has to do as a tertiary star.
Right.
And if you're if you're trying to move off of DeAndre Ayton, I say you either go. Maybe you can convince the Pacers that, hey, we have the guy that you wanted to sign. Maybe we trade DeAndre Ayton for Miles Turner. Maybe we try and get him for like a Jalen Smith or something like that. Somebody to just kind of exactly somebody who because at this point that's what DeAndre Ayton is. He's a bench player who's starting. He's a bench player with the contract of a star center. So you're going to try and trade him. You're probably going to get lowballed with trading either one of these two because of their value. We know Chris Paul is about 50 years old. Not many teams are going to want him unless they're going to buy him out. DeAndre Ayton, he has probably the lowest running motor in the game right now. Maybe another player I'll throw out there is Kristaps Porzingis. Maybe you can somehow get him from Washington. Exactly.
Yeah, Kristaps, especially with his defensive resurgence
from
this last year, that he was a bit of a defensive liability there in Dallas.
He was good at it in New York, too. I don't mean to cut you off.
No. In New York, that was probably peak defensive Kristaps.
Yeah.
But last year, I think we saw a lot of flashes of that in Washington. I think that would be a very good fit. But, Washington has to stay mediocre somehow. And a way to do that is to keep Kristaps, Bradley Beal, and that core together. But the Suns, a team that has all the talent in the world. They still have 2 of the best isolation scorers in the game. They just need to fill out some depth. And it all starts with the head coach.
Yeah,
it's everybody but Steve Nash.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. From everything I've heard, this was the Suns owner basically doing what the Timberwolves GM did last year. This is the Suns owner, Matt Ishbia, coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm going to make my imprint on the team. I didn't hire Monty Williams, so we're going to fire him."
Very questionable move.
I don't think this guy's been watching basketball a long time because Monty Williams just won Coach of the Year last year. Monty Williams is probably a top 5 head coach in the league right now. I can't think Eric Spoelstra, Ty Lue.
That's your top 2 right there, I think.
After that, it's probably Monty Williams.
Darvin Ham.
That's LeBron. Probably Mike Malone.
Yeah, Mike Malone's in there.
But Mike Brown. But you get the point. So I don't know. I think most people on that Phoenix Suns roster, not named DeAndre Ayton, liked Monty Williams too. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. They all bought in. They did what they had to do. And you can't give somebody a 5-man rotation and expect them to go win something in the playoffs. You can't give him basically 5 good players. One of them gets hurt and then the other one has a low motor and plays good for 5 minutes out of a quarter. And say, hey, let's go beat a good number 1 seed. Let's go beat a back-to-back MVP with a great supporting cast. So, Cavs, if you are listening, please, I know what you said about JB. You're not going to fire him, but Monty Williams just hit the market.
Yeah, right. And I think Donovan Mitchell would greatly appreciate a better coach there. As one that actually makes adjustments.
Exactly.
And doesn't lose to Tom Thibodeau. But Monty Williams, he's out there, but he's probably going to Milwaukee now.
Yeah.
Milwaukee with Giannis. Coincidentally, a team they lost to in the finals there just 2 seasons ago. The Suns, they have the talent. They're probably going to have to bring Chris Paul back for his contract unless the GM wants to bring in one of his best friends. But just moving over here to recap before we get into these 2 playoff matchups. The playoff record series so far, throughout the first 2 rounds, 12 series, I am 9-3. I've missed on Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Golden State in the second round there against the Lakers. Pretty badly, too. I had Golden State in 5. That series went nothing like I imagined. But regardless, I'm 9-3. You're right behind at 8-4 as you went up 4% or so from the first round. Any thoughts here as New York? You picked against them first round, but picked with them second round.
Well, that's because New York looked like a championship contending team when they played Cleveland. But I should have remembered that everybody looks like that in the playoffs when they play the Cavs, and we don't have LeBron. But I don't think anybody expected Milwaukee, or I thought Sacramento could get it done. In going into the playoffs, I thought the Cavs had what it took to get it done. So
if Milwaukee was still in it, they'd still be my title favorite.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really a toss up now between these last 3 teams. I don't count the Heat,
right?
But I think it's a toss up now.
There's parity. Parity is a beautiful thing, especially in the NBA. You can make an argument for any four of these teams, really. I mean, one of them you're going to have to really go hard for an argument, but you can really make an argument for all four of these teams to be the champion here in about a month.
Right.
But we'll move over here to the Eastern Conference Finals, a series that is 2-2 throughout the regular season. It's important to note that all four of these games took place before the NBA trade deadline. For these teams, nothing really changed with these teams throughout the entire year. But these teams met last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, where Boston won in 7. But it's worth mentioning Jimmy Butler had 47 in Game 6, and I was at your house for Game 7.
Yeah.
I think Game 6 and 7. But Game 7, Jimmy was basically one pull-up three away from sending the Heat to the finals in that season. But the question that's going to be answered in this series to me is, come playoff time, how important is depth? The Heat seem to have, they've lost a lot of their depth, the depth that they already didn't have, right? So right now they're really only running 6 or 7 deep, and they're going to be playing a Boston team that has probably 7 to 8 starters on most teams in the league. Boston's the most deep team in the league. They have everything you want. They check all the boxes, but they're just inconsistent. But the question for me is going to be, how important is depth in this series? But quick look up at the matchups. I want to do this as this series goes underway tomorrow. The matchups, I think we kind of talked about a little bit before the show, but we're most likely going to have Gabe Vincent on Marcus Smart, which I give the advantage over there to Boston, even though Marcus Smart's not much offensively. Max Strus is probably going to get the start to provide them some shooting, as Kevin Love cannot play against Boston, I don't think.
Yeah.
But Max Strus is going to be guarded. Derek White probably, that's a squash right there. I guess one brings offense, one brings defense. But Caleb Martin, I'm expecting to probably start tonight, as he brings more defense than Kevin Love, and he's going to be a guy that can guard either Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Not very good, but he's going to be able to guard him better than Gabe Vincent or Max Strus.
Yeah.
Jimmy's going to have the Tatum assignment, and of course Bam and Ty Lord there at the big positions. Who has the advantage lineup-wise?
I'd say Boston. We know that Max of all these players, and I just even when it comes to Tatum and Jimmy Butler. When Tatum's at his best, I think that he has so much versatility on offense that he might be able to get an edge over Jimmy Butler, especially because you're probably going to ask Jimmy Butler to play about 45 minutes a game in this series just to get the job done. And, that's not even accounting for if Jaylen Brown, also goes off. I also think Time Lord has a higher motor than Bam. I think Al Horford has a higher motor than Bam sometimes when it comes down to it. So, everything I think points to Boston having the advantage, but it all starts with their consistent play. We haven't gotten to it yet, but I have Boston winning in 6. I was going to have them winning in 5, but I really thought about it and I was like, you know what? I didn't think Philly was going to be able to take 2 games, let alone go to a game 7 with Boston. But the Celtics, if they lock in, if they are able to play their best every single game, I don't see this Heat team taking more than 1 game off. But because it is Boston and we know how they are, they have a rookie head coach in Joe Mazzulla. They're going to make some slip-ups. They're going to make some mistakes. They're going to lose a game or 2. So I have them winning in 6.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a moment. But Miami here, just some quick notes in the positives for them. We know Kevin Love might not play a ton in this series, but he is 14-0 in Eastern Conference playoff series. 12-0 with the Cavs and 2-0 with the Heat this year. Just a quick note there, as it seems like Kevin Love does not lose in the Eastern Conference. But Kyle Lowry, he's been great as of late. He's been really that spark, and Jimmy Butler was joking around after the series with the Knicks. The reporter asked Jimmy, what's different about this Heat team than previous years? He said, we have Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
Right, Kyle Lowry in the regular season, he was, obsolete. You forgot that he played for the Miami Heat.
He was about to get cut.
At one point, right? And now he's one of the most pivotal players on this Miami Heat team, and he's been a big reason why they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. But Jimmy, to me, will have to be superhuman. He'll have to be Superman mixed with Batman and Hulk. Okay, we're gonna need a otherworldly performance from Jimmy for 7 games in this series. Not to mention, we're gonna need a consistent Bam, which, whatever that means, we're going to need Bam to be consistently, at least defensively, there, right? Offensively, we know we're not always going to get, especially with Al Horford and Time Lord on him.
Right.
But we're going to need Jimmy to put up 30 plus a game. We're going to need these role players to step up and make their shots consistently. I mean, again, like I mentioned, we're going to need Jimmy to be Superman here in this series. But for Boston, to me, top to bottom, most talented team in the league. You can make the argument for maybe Phoenix or something just because they have KD and Devin Booker. But top to bottom, Boston is the most talented league or talented team in basketball for me. But you mentioned it. Will they continue to play down to their competition? I had them beating Philly in 5.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to continue to believe they can win in 5 games, and I'm going to have them beating the Heat here in 5. But will they continue to be inconsistent? Will they continue to let the Heat make things interesting? I think we both know the answer to that, as Boston always does.
Yeah.
But regardless, to me, the biggest thing here and the biggest reason I have Boston in 5 is because they have 4 legitimate bodies for Jimmy Butler. We're going to need Jimmy Butler to be Superman, but when you have to go up against Marcus Smart, who is a Defensive Player of the Year at the guard position, which we never see, you have Derek White, who's been an All-NBA defender, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. So you have 4 great defenders. I'm not going to go as far as to say like Al Horford can guard him, but you have 4 legitimate bodies that Jimmy's never going to have a rest. He's always going to have an All-NBA defender on him throughout this entire series.
That's not even counting. Like, I think Malcolm Brogdon can guard him. I think
right?
Some of those guys off the bench can guard him too. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Everything on paper says Boston. It's screaming Boston. So. Like you said, they just gotta play their brand of basketball, and I give them a little bit of sympathy because it is hard to do that consistently when you have a rookie head coach. Joe Mazzulla, I think he's a good coach, but you can tell that this is his first year, coaching. You can tell this is his first year in the NBA coaching, or as a head coach. There are mistakes. Sometimes the Celtics don't adjust until it's too late. Sometimes they don't adjust at all, and they wait till the next game to do it. Sometimes they lose games by not counter adjusting, and
right.
they've done it in the regular season. And they still have a team that can get it done when it's all said and done. So, like you say, I'm going with Boston here.
Yeah, I mean, Boston has the number 1 offense here left in the playoffs. I mean, the worst defense, but it's not by much compared there to, I believe Miami. Miami has the 3rd defense left, based off of the entire playoff so far. Boston's at 4, but like you said, everything screams Boston. Miami does have the coaching advantage, and I think they do have Jimmy Butler. And I have too much respect for Jimmy Butler and Erik Spoelstra to have them get swept here. But I believe I'm going to look stupid in a week. I believe that this series is probably going to go 6 or 7, and Jimmy Butler might even get them over the hump, with how inconsistent the Celtics are. But I believe just the overall roster gets them over the top for me. And as long as Jason Tatum's not as inconsistent as he was last series,
yeah,
they should be able to take care of business here.
Yeah,
big series for Jason Tatum for me.
And I owe Jason Tatum an apology.
Not yet for me.
He showed up when it matters. He gets an apology for this. He showed up when it matters.
Yes.
Season on the line, Game 6 last series, he showed up. Game 7, obviously, he got a lot of those points in garbage time.
Right.
But he still got the job done. And now you could just hope that he takes this into the next series. And we'll see what we can do. I think, like I say, I think Jason Tatum at his best. I think he's a better offensive player than Jimmy at his best. I think that Jimmy's a better defender.
Sides. Okay.
But yeah, I only say he's a better offensive player than Jimmy because he has the handles, he has the versatility.
I agree with that.
6'10".
I agree with that.
Jimmy is 6'6". Jason Tatum can shoot over you. I think the problem with Jason Tatum is he shoots too many jumpers. He can get in the paint pretty much at will, and he just doesn't. So we'll have to see how we have to see him play like that, like you say, consistently. Can he average 30 points in the series? It seems like it's hard. But can you believe, I didn't know this going into that Game 7. He's 5-1 in Game 7s. He's averaging 30 points in game 30.
I wonder who his loss was to.
9 and 2.
I wonder who his loss was to. Maybe it was the J.R. Smith led Cavs.
Yeah, he might have been the Kevin Love one.
Yeah. Tristan Thompson. Don't forget championship DNA.
Yeah, and Jaylen Brown's been to 7 conference. I guess this is about to be his 7th or 8th conference finals in his career. And he's 26.
Almost every year.
that's absolutely insane when you think about it. We know what the talk is behind the Celtics duo. Sometimes they're inconsistent. Sometimes they don't play that good, but they have an insane winning resume for guys that are just now hitting their prime. Still have a lot of years left in this league. So that's absolutely insane. But, like you say, Erik Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler, it's hard to bet against them to get the job done when it matters sometimes.
Yeah. Last note here before we move on to the Western Conference. They introduced the Larry Bird and the Magic Johnson Awards, where that's the MVP of the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. You have the Celtics here. To me, the MVP of this series, I think the Larry Bird trophy is going to go to Jaylen Brown this series. I know that Jason Tatum, I want to see Jason Tatum win it, first off. I want to say that I want him to prove he's the best player on this team. I know he just had the most points in a Game 7 ever, so I sound ridiculous. But I want Jason Tatum to, even though he's going to have Jimmy on him, Jimmy's going to be tired after Game 1 for the rest of the series. I want you to come out here and prove you're a top 10 player in the world, and I want you to win this award. But I think Jaylen Brown, with Caleb Martin on him, or if it's Kyle Lowry, all respect to Kyle Lowry, but he's not Jaylen Brown, right?
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown should have his way, and I think Jaylen Brown, again, is going to have a better playoff series than Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be Jaylen Brown. Even in that Game 7, Tatum had 51, a lot in garbage points, a lot of garbage time points. But Jaylen Brown was keeping up. Jaylen Brown was hitting shots, especially in that first quarter after that flagrant foul. He scored a few shots in a row. He got his points sporadically through the second and third quarter, even some in the fourth. So it's not like Jaylen Brown didn't come to do his job in that Game 7 as well. And like you say, I think Philly probably had a few better matchups for Jaylen Brown than the Heat have to offer. And we saw it last year in the finals. If the other team can put a good defender on Jason Tatum and he's not hitting shots, we know what Jaylen Brown can do. Jaylen Brown was that best player in the finals last year for a reason. He was able to take advantage of matchups. And even when when the Warriors put Draymond Green on Jaylen Brown was still finding a way to deliver for his team, and I expect no less when this whole Celtics team knows it's go time to get back to where they were last year and prove that it wasn't a fluke.
Moving over to the Western Conference Finals, Lakers, Nuggets, 1 seed and the 7 seed. The Lakers, we failed to mention with the Heat. Two teams that a play-in team has never won a playoff series. Now we now have 2 play-in teams in the last 4. We have them both in the conference finals. The Lakers will be representing the Western Conference team here as a 2-2 season matchup. It's important to note all of these matchups happened before the trade deadline. So we're talking about the Russell Westbrook edition of the Lakers. So all 4 of these games happened before the trade deadline, before the revamped, new-looked Los Angeles Lakers. But to me, the biggest thing here, the AD Jokic matchup will decide this entire series. I know the sky's blue, right? But I mean, sometimes it is just that cut and dry. I think the AD Jokic matchup, arguably the 2 best players on each respective teams, will decide this matchup. And I think when we go down like we did for the Eastern Conference and we look at these starting lineup matchups that we're most likely going to see tonight, D'Lo and KCP are most likely going to be going at it. 2 role players for their teams, right? I guess I'll put it that way. But Austin Reeves and Jamal Murray, will probably go at it. Just 2 straight bucket getters. No defense there is going to be played. They might become real X factors. We're expecting Bron to be guarded by Aaron Gordon, as Aaron Gordon might have AD, he might have LeBron. I think Aaron Gordon might have he might have the second most minutes in this series for the Nuggets, as crazy as that might sound. But I think with how the Lakers are going to stagger their stars' minutes, Aaron Gordon is going to be one of those guys on the court guarding that star player for the Lakers for the majority of it, as he's very underrated. But we're expecting Michael Porter Jr., the I never swing the rock. Michael Porter Jr. is going to be guarded probably by Jared Vanderbilt, maybe the best perimeter defender here on the Lakers. And, of course, the AD Jokic matchup we're all expecting to be a star stealer, or I guess show stealer, right, is what I'm looking for there. But for the Lakers, do you believe that the role players can continue to step up? Do you think Austin Reeves and Rui and Lonnie Walker, I guess, do you believe they can get enough consistent play from at least one of those guys every game like we've seen so far? As every game, it seems like either D'Lo, Austin Reeves, Rui, one of those guys is contributing, or Schroeder, right? 20 plus.
Yeah, I do. I do think we can continue to see that play from their role players. I think if you're just asking one of those guys to get you 15 to 20 points a game, just one of those guys for every game in the series, just, hey, can you go give me 12 to 15? Can you give me 15 to 17? I think that they can get it done. It feels like Schroeder always ends the game with like 12 points, 12 to 14 points. D'Lo, we know that he can score, he can average 22 points a game if he's on target, if he's locked in. Same thing with Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves can go out there and get you like 18.6 assists. He can go score. He can also dish out a few assists. Same thing with Rui. Rui, I think he struggled last series. Obviously wasn't that Memphis series. There were some times you put Rui in that game just because the Warriors are so small. It was like you take him out. He's not playing the defense you need. But because the Nuggets are a little bit bigger, because they have bigger guys, I think Rui, this will be a great bounce back series for him. Same thing with Lonnie. Lonnie is on a mission. This series, I think, to prove why he wants to continue to stay in this lineup. And I believe that we may even get. I think the Lakers are expecting Mo Bamba back at some point this series.
Shot blocker for sure.
Exactly. If he plays, we don't know, but he can stretch. He's really extended his range, and like you said, he can shot block. And I think if you're just asking one of those guys to go get you a bucket one night a game, I think they can get it done.
No, absolutely. I guess another big question here for the Lakers, which I believe is something that we will most likely see, and it is that coveted second gear from LeBron James. As there's questions on, is the LeBron that we've seen so far, is that the best LeBron that we're going to get? Has he gassed himself too much in the regular season early on? That what we're seeing now from LeBron, the kind of the game manager, is all we're going to get. I do believe we see a second gear from LeBron. That's kind of crazy to say that I can expect a 38, 39-year-old to play better than he has, as he's still averaging, basically a 28-point triple-double. But I think there is that second gear. I think there is that second gear LeBron's probably going to tap into at some point in this series, whether if it's early on or later on when this team is desperate. But I think that LeBron's going to play a pivotal part, and yeah, he might. This might be where LeBron starts to take over here, and maybe AD might go back to the second fiddle, but AD is going to have his hands filled with Jokic this entire series. So LeBron, he might have to step up more offensively. But for Denver, this team is complete. They check all the boxes you want. They have an MVP guy. They have great supporting cast, great defenders. But my question to you is, can they put it together when it all matters most? We've seen this team they've been very competitive the last 3 or 4 years, but they haven't been able to get over that playoff hump in the Western Conference. Do you think this is the year they can put everything together and get over that hump?
I believe that they're actually the leading bettors right now to win the
biggest
finals.
Favorites?
Yeah. So I do believe that they have what it takes to get the job done this series and next if they get there. Unfortunately for them, they're running into LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And, everybody knows at this point in his career, or by this point, never bet against LeBron. We're getting a rejuvenated Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis on a mission, like they said after that Warrior series, we want ring number 2. We want number 2. We want to go get it, so we're going to go do that. I believe that is what's fueling and making this Lakers team so dangerous. They smelled the blood in the water from the chance they were able to enter the playoffs. So here we are. But I do believe that this Nuggets team, especially Jokic, I believe that they want to prove to everybody, hey, we didn't have I guess they had a lot of injured players these past few years. They're probably saying, hey, we're back to where we were in that bubble run. We have new guys like Aaron Gordon and KCP, Bruce Brown off the bench. We can go get the job done. We can go beat LeBron and Anthony Davis, and we can go to the finals and win a ring. And I think if they do, Jokic will definitely, if he hasn't done it already, will definitely submit himself in NBA history, as an all-time great.
I mean, I think he's already maybe a top 10 center of all time.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, when Jokic is going to have AD on him this entire series, a defensive monster, Jokic is going to have his hands filled. And I mean, Jokic, we know, is more of a facilitator than an aggressive scorer. But at times, we've also seen Jokic give you 50 points when the team needs it most. But my question is, well, I guess I'll answer this. But, the biggest question here for Denver is, what are we going to get from the supporting cast, right? I know Jamal Murray, he's back to his old self. He's back to his bubble version. And he's back to the guy that averages 20 on a nightly basis. But can Jamal Murray pour in that 20-25? That's going to be a question we have to see. Can Michael Porter, with his crazy, high-powered, it's just him. The offense is very, very strategic, but Michael Porter is not. Michael Porter, he's very much of a fire or a flamethrower, right? He's you probably look it up. Michael Porter is going to be showing up. But Michael Porter, we know he catches the ball, he puts it up. He's going to get his shots up, and he's either going to give you 30 or he's going to give you 13. There kind of, unfortunately, is no in-between with his level of play or with his style of play. The good thing for him is he has Jokic that can put him always in the best position to get these shots off, get to his spots. And when you have probably the best passing big of all time, I mean, it's only going to help Michael Porter. And especially in a series like this where the Lakers might not necessarily have the wings, aside from Vanderbilt, to guard Michael Porter Jr. because LeBron, he's not going to chase around Michael Porter Jr.
No, he's not.
But I guess that leads us to our predictions. But go ahead and give me a 30-second to a minute and a half of whatever. This is going on IG. So if you guys are listening to this point, shout out to you. But who do you have in this series? How many games? I guess who do you have in this series?
I have the Lakers in 7. I've been saying it since the Memphis series that I believe that this Lakers team is probably one of the most complete since in LeBron's whole career. Maybe it's his style of play, like you said. Maybe it's just him being a game manager. But I was convinced when I saw LeBron score 21 points and Anthony Davis barely get into the double-digit points, and they were able to get the job done versus a Memphis team. Yeah, they were missing some guys, but Ja and all their other players played. I was convinced. They even at Golden State series, it just proved to me more that this Lakers team has what it takes with LeBron playing that game manager role. If it's the only role that he can play at this point in his career, he's doing a great job. Anthony Davis, ever since that game 2 that he had in Golden State, he's been dominant. He's been really good. We know Anthony Davis raises his level of play whenever he goes up against another elite big man. It's like clockwork. He goes against Joel Embiid. It's like 40 and 20. He goes against Jokic. It's the same thing. Giannis. He always raises his level of play because he feels disrespected when people have those talks. So I believe that the Lakers can get this done, fueled by Anthony Davis. Feelings about being guarded by Jokic. I think he's going to come out, prove why he's, maybe a top 3 big man in the league. Maybe he comes out and proves that. So I believe that this Lakers team can get it done. We just have to hope that Darvin Ham can somewhat stay in the same league as coaching as Mike Malone, because in a series like this, coaching matters a whole lot more than, maybe some of the player matchups. So.
Right. You touched on a lot of great points there. I think the coaching advantage definitely goes to Denver. That's no surprise there. The depth goes to maybe Denver, I would say. But at the end of the day, when you have LeBron James, maybe the best player to ever pick up a basketball, when you have Anthony Davis, who's had a bit of a resurgence here, as crazy as that sounds, but AD looks like the AD that came over from the Pelicans, and he set his goals. He set his eyes on winning another championship. Yeah. This looks like the AD from the bubble, and this looks like the LeBron that right now he's a game manager, but I think LeBron is slowly ramping up, and I think he will hit that second, maybe even third gear here to push the Lakers over the top. So for those reasons, I'm going to have Lakers in 7 as well. But early finals predictions, these are going to be quick, something we're going to just run through as we're eventually going to predict probably this series here. But you have Boston and the Lakers. I have Boston and the Lakers. The script has written itself. The script has written itself.
I've seen it coming from a mile away.
Right? Crazy to think that this Lakers team at midway point in the season people were saying it's a lottery team and we hated to see LeBron go out this way. And now we both have them in the finals. But who would you have in a final series between Boston and the Lakers?
I have Boston. Boston just has, like you say, they have seven guys who could start on NBA teams. They have a defensive versatility that to this point the Lakers haven't faced in the West. They have matchups for every position. When you can throw Time Lord and Al Horford at Anthony Davis, and then you could put Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown on LeBron, or even Marcus Smart on some possessions. I think that you're in for a world because you do have an older LeBron. You have Anthony Davis getting thrown at. It would take something historic from one of those two. And I also think that the defense from Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, even Marcus Smart, if he's not guarding one of those two players, or maybe he's guarding Dennis Schroeder, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, I think that defense all around on that team would just be a little bit too much for this Lakers team as currently constructed to overcome. But it would just, I think to me, it would rely on that defense and how good is Jason Tatum going to be.
Right. And Boston has everything. Yeah. like we've said, they're top to bottom, probably the most talented team in the league. But if it came down to this, where LeBron is in the finals at 38, 39 years old, as a Cavs fan, just as a basketball fan, especially in the state of Ohio, I would be hoping for the Lakers. I'd be hoping for the Lakers to LeBron to get his 5th ring, coincidentally getting his last ring, just like Kobe, against the Celtics with the Lakers. But LeBron, I think, to me, he's already the GOAT. I know that's in question, but to me, he's already the best player to ever pick up a basketball. I would love to see him get his 5th ring to really cement that in a lot of people's minds. But if it came down to it, I think no matter what, if it's an all-star team against the Lakers, I'm picking LeBron here in the finals.
Oh, that's
That's just just the nostalgia factor maybe. But it's definitely hard to pick against Boston when they have quite literally everything. They're a my league built team.
Like I said, they got to play. I think Jason Tatum. I think that the main thing for me is I know Jason Tatum will be eager to prove to everybody that last year he did let everybody down in the finals. I think he'll be eager to prove to everybody that he isn't that player. Obviously, we haven't seen that on a consistent basis, but I think I just have to put a little bit of belief. Everybody, it seems like, everybody, NBA analysts, everybody like that, it seems like they have a lot of belief in Jason Tatum. I know you haven't been the biggest believer. I haven't. I used to be a avid Jason Tatum fan. I just haven't seen that same belief that everybody else is seeing. But I have to, it's kind of crazy. It sounds like I'm saying, who would I rather have in the finals, Jason Tatum or LeBron James? I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I'm hoping that Jason Tatum says, hey, I didn't play good last year. Let me make it up.
Yeah, little bit of a revenge from 2018.
Right.
But that is really going to do it for today's show. I mean, today's topics are on your screen as you'll see this over on all of our social medias as well. But today's topics, we talked about a lot, from Ja Morant to LeBron maybe getting his 5th ring. We talked about a lot here on today's show. Any last thoughts before we get out of here? As we'll be back Thursday.
Not really. I think,
Game 1 goes underway tonight. Draft lottery.
Draft lottery, like I said, just please do not go to the Rockets. I was about to say the Pistons, but don't go to the Rockets. And I guess we're going to see Joel Embiid in New York soon.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Joel Embiid is the piece they need, or
no,
maybe Damian Lillard. Maybe they get that guard finally.
Yeah, they need Damian Lillard. Joel Embiid is just gonna get to the playoffs and then start quoting Giannis in the presser.
Well, what I'm really hoping for is New Orleans to hit a reset button there, and they take Jared Allen and Cedi Osman for Zion Williamson. Anyway,
I think Ja will be well versed coming to Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't have a lot of violence. Cleveland,
there's not much to do in Cleveland.
Yeah, what are you going to do in Cleveland, right? You're going to go to a 7-Eleven at 12 o'clock. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Even though they were one of the top 10 worst cities in the world.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. I think he needs to come to Cleveland, kind of reset his mind. Maybe he can learn a thing or two off the bench from Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell.
Absolutely. But again, that's going to do it for today's show. We'll see you guys Thursday as, again, we're approaching 200 subs on the channel. We might have it by this point, by the time you're listening to it. But if we're not there yet, go and support us. Share the podcast, as I guarantee you, if you like it, your best friend's most likely going to like it too. So share it with them, have them support the channel, and help us get to that 200 subscriber. But without further ado, we'll see you guys Thursday. Stay happy, stay healthy. We're out.